Okay, this one is, in a way, it's gold for me, but reading this and then deciding to read it to you makes me feel rather down. It's rather depressing. But I have here a memo from Police Services delivered to George Bridges early on May 24th, 2017. And it's regarding today's planned event. This memo reads, "It has come to my attention this morning that there is a planned event today at 1 p.m. in the library building on campus. The event is being held to, quote, hold the Evergreen State College's racist administration accountable for their actions. Based on the escalating actions, propensity for conflict, and growing number of this group, I'm concerned about the safety of community members on this campus today. For an event that we believe will draw hundreds of people, potentially outside people, we need to be prepared. The event has been advertised on social media sites which reach many people outside of our immediate campus. The opening of the EOC, an incident command system, and outside resources is appropriate with the information we now have. Typically, outside agencies, including higher ed, Western Washington University, and University of Washington as two examples, plan for these events, have adequate staffing, and an incident command structure in place. I'm aware of the low-key historical response from higher ed to these incidents, but, as you have said, the escalating behavior and incidents that have been occurring this school year are unprecedented here at Evergreen and around the country. I am asking that we call for mutual aid now, staff the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, and begin incident command planning. As it stands now, we do not have enough staff to adequately and safely employ crowd control without calling in outside resources. If we do not have appropriate resources, we will disengage and not respond or be present in the area unless someone's life is in danger. If that happens, we will be responding with outside resources for the safety of all involved. Sending 2 officers into a volatile crowd is not safe or recommended. You have asked me to be the Director of Police Services. As such, you have asked me to take charge of the safety of campus community members. I'm asking you for these resources not to be, quote-unquote, aggressive or, quote, not understanding higher ed, end quote, but because of my training, years of law enforcement experience, and the collaboration and discussion with other law enforcement leaders in this area that have encountered similar circumstances. With the recent events in the area which have led to violence and which many of our students have been involved in, I would be remiss not to be advising of you my sincere concerns. In law enforcement, we always hope for the best, but plan for the worst. If someone were to be hurt today, I would never forgive myself for not doing my best to prepare this campus and keep them safe. I can only do so if I have the support to move forward with everyone's safety in mind. Signed, Stacy Brown. Now, why is that sad to me? I can hear Stacy Brown's deep concern and her urgency in this memo, and I can imagine what it was like to hand that memo to the president and to be effectively shrugged off. And then, later on that day, when 1 p.m. rolls around, and students file in and take over the library building and block the entrances and exits and force staff and administration to hole up in their offices, to escort members of the staff to and from and around the building, and then to sequester George and his staff into George's office. And then George goes on and says,
I felt perfectly safe in that environment. I feel perfectly safe with college students. I didn't like the way they spoke with me, sir, but I felt safe.
Could you have left? Could you have left?
I believe I could have, yes, sir.
All right.
He didn't feel unsafe. He was de-escalating the problem. But that one person, that president, it's not just about his feelings. It's about everybody in that library building. And we have somebody who is prepared to de-escalate that, to really de-escalate that. And furthermore, we really need to realize that had George followed, and retrospect is 2020, but had George taken account of this police chief's 20 years of experience working your way up from the very bottom to the top, to the chief of police, as a woman, that's not exactly the easiest thing to do. I mean, she's cutting edge in her industry for doing that. And to be dismissed like that, and to have George think that he can handle everything on his own. Well, what if somebody did get hurt? Then the story would have been changed, but they can still tout out this nonviolent but loud protest action. But furthermore, Evergreen itself is basically ruined at this point because George allowed that to happen. Not only was there protests, but the students went around and filmed that whole thing. And all of this media attention, besides that isolated incident of one teacher going against a group of students and trying to figure out how to communicate them and being called a racist, it would pale in comparison to an entire campus being thrust under the control of a shouting authoritarian mob. And furthermore, a mob that was then, whose leaders were then rewarded with positions of authority, not only to redesign the student code of conduct, people who actually held people hostage were able to redesign the student code of conduct, and then were also able to give orientation sessions to incoming freshmen this year. And again, Evergreen in past years has recorded this, but is still filming, but is no longer recording the events inside of the machine. Not only is this funded by the state, but this is molding the future of our state. And so that this memo, I mean, it's frustrating and it's actually a delight to have and to present for very selfish and critical reasons, but that's all overcome by the utter abjectness of George Bridges and his failure as a leader, his utter failure as a leader. At this point, I don't think he's spineless. At this point, I really think that he wanted that to happen. And he's ruined the value of my degree and other people's degree. He's ruined the chance to turn this into a learning moment by, this whole equity thing keep on going now with their rallies of inclusive exclusion or exclusive inclusion and so on. So he could have stopped this. He could have brought this to a halt. He could have let the police do their jobs. And it's funny because you listen to these student protesters, they're constantly whining about feeling unsafe. And in the next sentence, shouting, "Fuck the police."
Honestly, this should not be surprising to any of us. This is the same person who said they needed to show up to peaceful protest with guns because it's peaceful until it's not. Fuck you and fuck the police!
And George is not, and George and possibly a lot of the other administration and staff are allowing the students to persist in this myth that the police are completely violent and that those who are sworn to serve and protect you aren't actually sacrificing a lot to be able to keep us safe. How in the world are you helping all these vulnerable people by not providing them education and providing them with proof, direct proof that the police who are sworn to protect are actually doing everything they can to protect and are being muzzled, are being held back by, to and all accounts, ineptly malicious administration? And that's too sad. So I'm gonna wrap it up now.